Prospects. We're going to talk Red Sox prospects with Jim Callis, senior writer, MLB.com and MLBpipeline.com. Plus, Giolito exercises his option. And do we really want the Red Sox going down the road with Juan Soto? You're right where you need to be. You're Locked On Red Sox.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are glad to have you on board with our latest Locked On Red Sox, part of the Locked On Sports Podcast Network. Steve Lennox one more time filling in for Gabby Hurlbut, who will be back next week, as Gabby and David on Saturday are going to celebrate 2 weeks of being married. And Gabby, not sure if she's coming back, Gabby Hurlbut or Gabby Maljanian, but Gabby is going to be back with you on Monday. Steve Lennox again with you, longtime play-by-play announcer, host of the Locked On Red Sox postcast during the regular season. And next October as well, you can book that. On our latest Locked On Red Sox, which is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you can get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. As always, we invite you to be part of the show. Our everydayers, our first-timers. If you're with us today on the Locked On Red Sox YouTube channel, we want to hear from you. We're going to get into Juan Soto in just a moment. Join the conversation. Again, you can also follow us on X at Lennox on Baseball as well, with questions, comments, or concerns. We've had some great interviews this week. Apologize for not having Jen McCaffrey with The Athletic on Thursday. That was my bad, not Jen's. We'll perhaps have her on in the future if I fill in for Gabby on Locked On Red Sox again. So earlier this morning, reading The Athletic online, Will Salmon, Kelly Wu, and Patrick Mooney. 3 tiers, maybe more than 4 tiers, for maybe more than 2 tiers for the pursuit of Juan Soto in free agency. 1, the Yankees. 1A, the Mets. 1B, the World Series champion, Los Angeles Dodgers. And again, we're going to talk prospects with Jim Callis here in just a few moments, but I wanted to talk about this right off the bat. Tier 2, the Red Sox, the Giants, Phillies, and Blue Jays, all in that same category. And they listed as rich, desperate, aggressive. I'm really not sure, and when I say I'm really not sure, I don't want the Red Sox necessarily going down the road with Juan Soto. So if you're going to tip your toes in the water and then realize, hey, this isn't for us, I'd rather see that money spent elsewhere. If you're willing to go $500 million, 10-plus years for Juan Soto, and that's not even getting you in the door as a conversation starter, I don't want Juan Soto with the Red Sox for this reason. I don't want to be tied to Juan Soto with all of that money for a decade plus, and that's what it's going to take. And you can say Mookie Betts, and you can say the organization doesn't spend money. Juan Soto, terrific talent, young, heading free agency, one of the youngest in terms of getting a contract with what he's going to get, big-time money. I'd rather see it, and we've talked to different people over the last 2 weeks, filling in for Gabby on Locked On Red Sox. Pitching. I'd rather be blown away by what the Red Sox are going to do in free agency here or in the trade market to add on via the pitching, because your top 4 prospects, so we're going to talk about Jim Callis of MLBpipeline.com in just a moment, those are the guys you want. Those are the guys you want in the mix. Offensively, you're going to hit, you're going to score runs. There's no doubt about that. I go the pitching route best I can. Starting pitching, relievers. 100% on board with that. Hey, Mike Debate has you covered. Locked On Patriots. John Corrales has you covered with the Celtics, with Locked On Celtics. And I'm on board now with the Locked On Celtics postcast as well. All part of the Locked On Sports Boston YouTube channel as well. So you can hit us up there. And I'll be on board with the Celtics tonight, first of 2 in a row against the Hornets, doing Locked On Celtics postcast, just like we did Locked On Celtics or Locked On Red Sox postcast during the season as well. Jim Callis is going to join us in just a few moments from MLBpipeline.com, also longtime writer and contributor to Baseball America. We're going to talk with Jim here in just a few moments. But to the Juan Soto again, Soto just for me is one of those guys. Again, you can't argue with the talent, but I don't want to be tied to Juan Soto for a decade plus. I really don't. All of these contracts, long term, 8, 9, 10, 12 years that we're going to see, they're not going to age well. They're just not going to age well. And Juan Soto is the latest addition. He's going to get everything deserving on the market. Jim Callis next. And Locked On Red Sox presented by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app does give you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view play-by-play, which is live, and so much more on the same page where you are placing your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You will get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Absolute privilege to welcome in Jim Callis. Jim, senior writer for MLB.com and MLB Pipeline as well. He joins us now, just coming off vacation. And Jim, I appreciate you taking some time with us here. And, with the Red Sox organization where they're at, I just, sort of talked about the Athletic article today, Red Sox Tier 2 with the Giants, Phillies, and Blue Jays going after Juan Soto. But in terms of the prospect world right now with the Red Sox, I've had guests on the last couple of weeks filling in for the regular host, Gabby Hurlbut, on Locked On Red Sox. Pitching. And it's kind of where I want to start with you, with the number of pitchers they have in the Arizona Fall League. Craig Breslow doesn't get a pass, but Craig Breslow is going to need some time to develop that pitching in the minor league system. From what you've seen, are they going in the right direction with that?
I think it's just too early to tell. They used their first-round pick, obviously, this year on Braden Montgomery. Not that the first-round pick alone could turn around, but I thought coming into the year, they had one of the best collections of minor league hitters. I think it's only gotten stronger when you've seen the emergence of guys like Christian Campbell and I can't even pronounce the password's name. I can't pronounce it. You know what I'm talking about. Stinson Garcia.
Yes.
Right. We're going to call
you were very close. And again, I was told the other day, go with the password.
Yeah, the tongue just doesn't want to say the first name. But anyway, it's even better. I thought coming into the year they had one of the thinnest groups of pitching prospects around, and it's not something you can just turn around immediately. Like the guy who's probably their best pitching prospect, Luis Perales, got hurt at midseason, and they don't really have guys in the organization you point to and say, oh, that guy's going to be in the front half of a rotation. Oh, you can see that guy closing out games. It's more depth type guys than guys who are going to be difference makers at the big league level. And that's going to take a while you can't just replenish that overnight. So it's going to take a while. And the fall league, it's interesting. I mean, every team has to send 5 pitchers to the fall league. It's a rule. Like every team, literally the 6 fall league teams have 25 pitchers on each roster because they each have 5 parent clubs, 5 pitchers for each team. And in general, you don't send very good pitching prospects to the fall league because if your pitchers were healthy, if your best pitchers were healthy during the season, you're not going to add on more innings. You scripted out how many innings you want them to pitch. And if you have a guy like Luis Perales who was hurt, well, he's hurt, so he can't go. So you generally kind of get older relief prospect types. The league it's a fun league, but it's much more stronger in terms of hitters and pitchers. So I don't necessarily think that the guys in the Red Sox have sent to Arizona aren't necessarily top pitching prospects. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
On the position side, we talked with Brooks Brannon the other day. He seems to have, something on social media, clobbered a home run this past weekend that was almost eye level. Of the 3 guys, Brooks Brannon, Max Ferguson, Caden Rose, do those guys have the potential to continue to jump up within the organization?
Well, Brandon's the only guy who's on our top 30 prospect list at MLB Pipeline. And he's interesting. He was I think it was a 9th round pick a couple years ago. He got mid-round money. He was an overslot bonus guy. And he's just been hurt, so he hasn't played a whole lot. And, for the fall league, it's a chance to get him at bats. I know the Red Sox are excited about him. He's one of the better power hitters in the organization. He needs to improve. He hasn't faced a lot of advanced pitching. He's doing well in the fall league. It's a hitter's league, like I said. I think teams are averaging 7 runs a game or something out there. But he had left knee surgery in the offseason that cost him the first 7 weeks of the season. He was hurt last year as well, or in 23 as well. He's got plus arm strength. He needs time to work on his receiving. So he's the guy who's probably the most interesting. Well, he is definitely the most interesting of the guys that have there. I mean, you have a power hitting catcher, strong arm. He just needs time to develop, and he's lost time to injuries. But what we've seen 50 or so at bats in the fall league looks promising. Ferguson is more of a kind of a utility type. He can play all over the field. He can run. He gets on base. He had an ankle injury. Didn't have much of a year this year. He only played 28 games. But he's, like I said, more of a utility type, on-base guy, not a ton of power. And Caden Rose was a 7th-round pick a couple years ago out of Alabama, and he's been hurt almost his whole pro career too. He's played 35 games in 2 years. He's got solid speed, gap power, hope he can stick in center, but really haven't seen a whole lot of him. So the Red Sox guys in Arizona, I think Brannon is definitely the best of the group.
Jim, going back last 2 drafts, Kyle Teal, catcher 2025 or 2023, and then Montgomery this year. Montgomery was coming off an injury. Those similar in the fact that they both fell almost to the Red Sox, and they were right there to swoop them up. Which one has the upper? Which one has the higher ceiling right now for you? As they're both going to be knocking on the big league door. Teal, a little bit more experience right now at the pro level.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said that exactly right, Steve. I mean, both those guys probably I don't think the Red Sox in either case expected those guys to be there. Teal's funny. Yeah, you go back and you look at that 2023 draft, and I thought he had a chance to go as high as 6 to the A's, and he wound up going 14 to the Red Sox. And it's funny, he went 14th. Matt Shaw went 13th to the Cubs, and Bryce Eldridge went 16th to the Giants. And by the end of that summer, people were like, why'd these guys last that long? Like already people were kind of surprised. And this year, I think with Montgomery, there was a little uncertainty because he broke his ankle in the Super Regionals shortly before the draft. So I think that affected his stock a little bit. I thought he kind of fit. I thought he was going to go in the 8 to 10 range, to be honest with you. But I think in both cases, the Red Sox did benefit from, hey, a guy got to him who probably shouldn't have. I think they both have high ceilings. I'd probably give Teal the higher ceiling by just a little, Steve, because of the position. It's hard to find catchers, and he definitely projects as an everyday catcher, a potential all-star catcher. He can hit. I think it's 20 homer power. He's athletic for a catcher. And so I think that gives him a little higher ceiling. Montgomery's kind of your classic right field, really strong arm. I mean, he was a pitcher who had, a mid-90s fastball as well, pitched a little bit in college. And he's got big-time power, too. And he's probably like a 30-homer, kind of, classic strong-armed right fielder. But they're both top 100 prospects. And, like I said, I'd give Teal the edge because of the position, and he's gone out and proven it. He's played well in the upper levels of the minors while we're still waiting for Montgomery to debut. But you're right, both those guys, I think we have potential to look back 5 years from now and go, why those guys last as long as they did, they shouldn't have.
Jim, want to slot this question in right here, and interested to get your thoughts on it. I'm a New York Penn League guy. I broadcast for 3 different teams in the New York Penn League, which no broadcaster should have ever done over the time. But I enjoyed my time in the minor leagues, and that short season level. Montgomery wouldn't have played this year, but Teal, perhaps he would have started in short season ball. First round pick, maybe not. But college guys would have been in that Northwest League, the New York Penn League. With Major League Baseball getting sort of rid of that level, that short A level, starting in June after the draft, what have been the positives? What have been the negatives for development for guys coming out of college baseball not being able to start at that level? Is there any?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing, like you kind of allude to there, Steve, is you have a level to kind of ease in. Like I love college baseball. That was my first job at Baseball America, or I guess back in the day when I started, I wore many hats at Baseball America, but I was a college beat writer, and I loved covering College World Series and the Olympics and all that stuff. And I went to Georgia, and I'm a big SEC guy. And SEC, no question in my mind, is the best league in college baseball. I don't think anybody would dispute that. And the SEC probably is equivalent to what short season ball was. Because, I mean, you're going to have a lot of very good players in the SEC, but you're also going to have guys who aren't pro players too. And, as you know, Steve, from broadcasting games, when you get in pro ball, you're facing quality. I mean, look, the guys might not be able to throw strikes, guys might not be polished, but you're facing quality arms. You're facing quality hitters every night. Like, it's all guys with tools, which isn't always the case at college or lower levels. And so anyway, the New York Penn League, Northwest League was also a short season. You had rookie leagues too. You had the Appy League, was one. The Pioneer League was one, and it allowed guys to break into pro ball, kind of ease in that first pro summer. Now you don't have that. You're immediately, if you're playing, like most of the pitchers don't pitch if you're coming out of college or high school.
Right.
But, most of your high school guys will play the Complex League. They moved it. So now the Complex League doesn't exist anymore after the draft. So if you're a high school player, most of those guys are playing in what they call the Bridge League, which is kind of informal games at the complexes. So they don't get to break in to, like, say, the Pioneer League or the Appy League, and you don't have the complex leagues going at the end of the season like they used to, because now they're earlier. And for the college guys, instead of easing into New York Penn League, you're immediately going into A-ball. I think the positives are, you mentioned Kyle Teal. Kyle Teal hit the ground running, and he got to Double-A by the end of his first full season. And that's at the stage for this year where he was very good in Double-A, and then he made to Triple-A. So I think if you're ready, if you're talented enough to handle, starting off your career in low A or high A, that's a benefit. But it does make it trickier, especially with them shifting the complex leagues earlier in the calendar, to get guys at bats and not overwhelm them at the same time. And you do run into guys who, maybe go to full season ball right away. Like I can immediately think they had short season ball back then, but two guys who were very high picks, top 5, top 6 picks, Corey Ray of the Brewers, who never really made it, went straight to high A, struggled, and kind of never really recovered. And then J.J. Boudet, who finally started going with the A's. The Marlins started him aggressively in high A, and he struggled, and he never really got rolling in their system, and he only now is recovering. So, yes, if you're Kyle Teal and you do well, you can use that as a springboard and maybe take off even quicker than people expected. But if you struggle, it sometimes can be difficult to recover from that.
Yeah, agree 100%. Appreciate your candor on that one. As this 2024 minor league season was playing out, and you saw Anthony, Meyer, Campbell, and Teal, and hearing things about them and what they were able to do in the Red Sox system, what struck you the most as those guys were, having terrific years? And, it wasn't one guy. It wasn't your top pick. It wasn't your top guy in MLB pipeline. It was all four of these guys just slowly, and then all of a sudden exploding, of having terrific seasons.
Yeah, I think the guy, you can look a couple different directions. It's like, Roman Anthony established himself as one of the very best prospects in the game. I think he's number 3 on our MLB Pipeline Top 100. I believe he's number 1 on Baseball America's list. He's been a success story. But I was going to say, the guy who I think, if you had to pick one guy who was the most pleasant development, it would have to be Christian Campbell, who went from being relatively anonymous to one of the best prospects in baseball. We have him ranked number 10 on our top 100, and he was not on our Red Sox top 30 to begin the year. I don't think it was anybody's Red Sox top 30 to begin the year. And he's a supplemental 4th-round pick a year ago, and I do Georgia for the draft, and I do our Red Sox list. So I knew who he was, but scouts were intrigued by him a little bit. But you saw some bat speed and you saw some power in BP, but it didn't really translate in games. He had kind of a flat swing, and he could run. He had plus speed, but it didn't really translate defensively or on the base pass. The scouts were like, interesting tools, but he doesn't really get the most out of them. Weren't sure, which is why I went in the supplemental 4th round. And it's not as easy. This could make it sound like it was a lot easier than it was, because the teams try to make adjustments with players all the time. But okay, so it comes in pro ball, and he had a really nice debut. And the Red Sox kind of offseason plan was, we want you to get stronger. We want to try to adjust your swing path so you can drive the ball in the air more. We have a bat speed program. We want to improve your bat speed. And he worked really hard, and he took to it. And again, it's not just as simple as saying, hey, Steve, we'd like you to get stronger and swing harder and lift the ball more. Or Jim.
And not eat Halloween candy that's in the other room.
Yeah, it usually doesn't work that way. But Christian Campbell had, one of the best seasons in minor leagues. He was our minor league offensive or hitting prospect of the year, and just took off. Everything he took to all these changes really, really well. So I think that's the most positive element. Then, like I said, you had Roman Anthony blossoming into one of the, arguably as good as any prospect in baseball who's in the minor leagues right now. You had Kyle Teal continuing to develop. I mean, you could argue, among catchers, I mean, Kyle Teal, you could make an argument that he's the best catching prospect in baseball. You could defend that opinion if you wanted to say that. And then Marcelo Meyer, he remains one of the best shortstop prospects in baseball. And he's still just 21. I think the question with him is he going to be able to stay healthy over 162 game season? Because we haven't seen that over a minor league season. But when he was healthy this year, like we know last year he got off to a really good start, hurt his shoulder, tried to play through it, didn't do well for a month, and then they shut him down. We came back this year in Double A, and he looked like the Marcelo Meyer that everybody's been talking about since they made him the 4th overall pick in the draft. And honestly, he was another guy who probably shouldn't have gotten to the 4th pick of the draft, where the Red Sox looked up and were like, "Hey, what's Marcelo Meyer doing here? This is a pretty easy pick." But yeah, I think all 4 of those guys. It's hard to say. We don't know what the Red Sox are going to do. My guess is they'll probably all start the year in AAA next year. But I would think that the AAA, I was going to say Pawtucket, AAA Worcester is going to be the most talented minor league team anywhere with those 4 guys to start next season.
Not sure, Jim, how familiar you are. I'm sure very familiar, but the guys that they're going to have to protect on the 40-man roster and add to the 40-man roster by the deadline coming up in a few weeks. Any of the names you mentioned, Garcia, the password, but Castro is number 19. You've got Hunter Dobbins, and again, you're talking about pitching. Dobbins and Monegro, are those guys? Do you see at least 3 of these guys being added, if not all 5?
I don't know. It's funny because, I mean, Garcia, I think, would definitely get protected. We have, looking at our top 30, you mentioned Castro, Dobbins, Monegro, Blaze Jordan are the other 4 guys in the top 30. I don't know that they'll protect those guys. I mean, Castro's interesting, but he got to Double A toward the end of the year. The thing is with the Rule 5 draft, you have to be able to stick in the big leagues. They have to keep you in the big leagues all year. Castro, he had 240 in Greenville. He had 180 in a month in Portland. He's interesting. It's not unbelievable tools. It's more kind of average tools across the board. I don't see realistically how he makes a big league team next year based on what he did in the minors. So I don't think they would protect him. Dobbins is interesting. Dobbins had one of the better years in the system. I don't, it's tough. He performed at the upper levels, so they might protect him, but he's more kind of average across the board too. I think the slider's slightly above average, but it's not wow stuff. Like my guess is, considering, he pitched well at Worcester in the final month of the season, they would probably protect him. Monegro hasn't pitched above high A. He was banged up this year. He's got a curveball. The rest of the stuff is kind of average or fringy. I don't think they'd protect Monegro, and Blaze just hasn't. Blaze has kind of had a weird development path in that when they signed him, in the pandemic draft, it was power over hit. Like, this guy's huge power, but he swings and misses a lot. He's almost gone the other direction where he makes contact, but he hasn't shown the power people expected. But I don't think Blaze would stick on a big league roster. So I think they would definitely protect the password. And Dobbins, I'd say I'd lean towards protecting him, but I don't think it would be a huge shock because he's more of a floor than a ceiling guy. But he did have success at the upper level. So I'd say I would guess they would probably protect him, but I think the other guys they probably would.
And Blaze Jordan's one of those guys. We started hearing about his name, 12, 13, 14 years old, as you mentioned, with that, with the power that opened up a lot of eyes for scouts.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. He definitely has made some adjustments to make more contact. But, this year he hit 7 home runs in 89 games in Double A. He's talked about, and credit to him, I mean, he's dealt with some mental health issues, and I think he's dealing well with those. But it's tough, and the thing is, he's still just 21. And so, just to clarify too, I know I'm saying this. I'm not saying these guys aren't good players. It's just you don't have to protect them on the 40-man roster. Like Blaze Jordan, the Red Sox still. I mean, he's still. I think because people forget too. He reclassified into the pandemic draft, so that would have been his junior in high school. He won't turn 22 till December. He's still extremely young. He's in Double A at age 21. So I think the Red Sox want to continue to see how he develops. They just aren't going to have to protect him on the 40-man because I don't see how Blaze, after the year he had in Double A, would stick with the big league club.
Jim, big part of the theme is Craig Breslow and still putting his fingerprints and really establishing the organization. From the minor league side, are there guys in the minor league system, whether it's, managers, coaches, hitting coaches, philosophies, guys that stick out for you, instructors, coordinators, things like that, guys that stick out for you in the Red Sox organization right now that say, yeah, they're on the right path because of, this person, this person, this person.
Yeah, I mean, I deal more at the higher levels with like the farm director Brian Abraham and scouting director Devin Pearson and guys at that level when I'm doing prospect lists, as opposed to talk to a lot of the individual instructors. I mean, I think though, if I'm a Red Sox fan and I want optimism, I look at the Cubs, and the Cubs literally had the best collection of young position players at one time I've ever seen in doing this for 30 plus years. And they won a World Series. And when they won that World Series, I think everybody, and I did too, looked at it and was like, Theo Epstein's there, Jed Hoyer's there. They've got this great young nucleus. They're just going to win multiple World Series. They're going to be a contender. And I think they won, if I'm not mistaken, one playoff series after 2016. And that was one where a lot of things went wrong for the Nationals. The Cubs were fortunate to win that one series as well. And the reason it didn't happen is they didn't develop any pitching like for years. And I have a lot of respect for those guys. I have a lot of respect for Jason McLeod, who's another guy who's with the Red Sox forever, contributed to championship teams of Boston. And they just never were able to develop any kind of quality pitching for almost a decade. And Craig Breslow came in, and then that began to change like very quickly. And so I think that's where I would have the optimism from, is that, look, this guy went to an organization that was struggling to develop pitching and kind of revamped how they did things, and then they started developing it a lot. Now, that said, there's two aspects to getting, creating pitching for your big league team. You have to scout and sign it, and then you have to develop it. Like nobody, Craig Breslow can't just wave a magic wand. I'll give this example and say, Steve, you're going to be a number 2 starter. Jim, you're going to be a number 3 starter because I know pitching and I can turn you guys into pitching. Like, no, you have to invest some capital in pitching as well. Like, they trade, the last season they traded for Richard Fitz, they traded for David Sandlin. Those guys are decent, middle, the system type of mid-range pitching prospects. Is what I'm trying to say. They aren't frontline guys. They use their second, third, fifth, sixth round picks on pitchers. I don't think necessarily, guys who are going to be frontline starters. Peyton Toley's interesting, Brandon Neely's interesting, etc. But we'll see. Like so to get to develop pitching, they're also going to have to invest in pitching as well. And they're not in a situation where they're not going to contend at all to where, okay, we're going to trade veterans for pitchers. They're pretty much going to have to go out and sign and develop pitchers. I will say internationally, I mentioned Luis Perales before. Wickelman Gonzalez had a rough year, but like internationally, they've gone out and found some guys who are promising, and they're just going to do that. They're going to probably have to make a concerted effort to draft more pitchers, to develop more pitchers, if that makes sense.
It does. Right now, it feels like they're in the quantity over quality stage, perhaps, just a bit.
Yeah, again, you look at what Chaim Bloom did. I mean, Nick Pivetta, pitched really well for the Red Sox. I think he's a free agent now. And you can find some guys. And that's kind of what you have to do it anyway with pitching, is the quality. I mean, it is the quantity, because pitchers get hurt. Your best laid plans can go awry for that reason. But I think if we go back and look in the last 5 or 6 years, the Red Sox have spent the bulk of their draft capital on hitters. And like we said, they have a 5, if you throw Braden Montgomery in there, they have 5 hitters at the top of the system who are probably as good a group of 5 hitters that anybody has. And that's not even counting Franklin Arias and Yoel and Cespedes, who came out of their national program, who are young shortstops. We're going to see, really hit the ground running in full season ball next year. But I think they have. I like the Breslow hire from the standpoint of I live in Chicago. I saw what he did with the Cubs. There's no reason he can't. Whether it's philosophies or techniques or what they emphasize. It seems like he has a pretty good idea of how to get the pitching program going. Now you just need to put some arms into it.
Jim, outstanding stuff. Really do appreciate it. And you can tell Jonathan Mayo, hey, tell that guy to lose my email and lose my phone number. But
He's
love
running around
Jonathan Mayo.
Arizona right now. He's running around
Yes, he
Arizona
is.
right now, having a good
Yes,
time.
he is.
So.
Right where he wants to be. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. There is no baseball offseason, but enjoy everything leading up to next spring training. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Jim Callis joining us, does just a terrific job. He said it there, 30-plus years covering baseball. Baseball America, MLB Pipeline, MLB.com has just done an outstanding job. Must read, must follow as well on social media because just does an outstanding job. I've loved the fact that he's been involved in draft coverage on the television side, MLB.com, MLB Network, and different things over the years because he just brings such a great perspective and is in tune with so many people in baseball. Lucas Giolito did exactly what we thought he was going to do. And New York radio tried to compare the 25 Yankees when they were down 3-0 in the World Series to the 2004 World Series champion Red Sox. We're going to discuss that next. Hey, Locked On Red Sox. Again, we do thank Jim Callis for joining us here on Locked On Red Sox. Gabby Hurlbut is back with you next week. We are presented by Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down closer as you get closer to the first pitch. Game Time features seat views. What are seat views? Well, you get your panoramic view from your seat in the app before you purchase your tickets. And with Game Time, you get the lowest prices guaranteed, or Game Time is going to credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app, create your account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, create your account, redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So, Locked On Red Sox postcast during the season, I let people know that, I live in the New Haven, Connecticut area. So I've got New York just down the road. I go north. I'm in Boston after I go through Providence or whatever route I want to take. So I've got, if I want to listen to Boston radio stations, it's on the app. EEI, the Sports Hub. If I want to listen to New York stations, I go AM, FM dial, right? So a couple of days ago in the car, and I had it on because I wanted to hear about the World Series talk and stuff like that. And the hosts were talking about comparing, hey, the Yankees were down 3-0. They won a game. Well, don't let them win another game. Don't get this going back to Los Angeles for game 6 and 5. Hey, we've got Garrett Cole here. We know how things unfolded. A lot of people watched 2 nights ago with smiles on their face, right? But comparing what the Yankees were trying to do, comparing to what the Red Sox did in 2004 in the American League Championship Series against the Yankees, it was a brutal comp. It really was. And it just kind of fired me up. I was going to do it yesterday, didn't do a show. But it was just, it wasn't there. I mean, again, if they had gotten to a game 7, which would have been Saturday night, and I would have liked to have seen it, not for Fox, but the ratings for the first 5 games were terrific. I love that for baseball. I really do. But game 6 and 7 TV ratings, I think, would have been terrific. But I really didn't think the Yankees were going to get to a game 7 in Los Angeles. I really didn't. So even to start that comp after being down 3-0 and then being down 3-1, that was just a brutal reach in what I thought, listening to that the other day. I know what you're thinking. Shame on me, New York radio. As expected, Lucas Giolito did pick up his $19 million player option for 2025. We'll see if Giolito can now join the recruiting process, because the more and more I look at it, the more and more Corbin Burns, okay. Max Fried, I think that's the guy I want. And Fried and Giolito played together in high school. They were both first-round draft picks out of Harvard Westlake High School in California in their draft year. And going back to the Dodgers, how about that pitching staff in high school? Jack Flaherty was a sophomore as Fried and Giolito were seniors. But Giolito, $19 million player option, picks that up for 2025. It wasn't complete Tommy John surgery. I'm going to be very interested to see how Giolito plays out come spring training. Is he available right away at the beginning of the season? Again, it was a bracket. What they're trying to do differently than, and I don't know if there's a comparison, but years ago when I was a broadcaster, Carolina League in Wilmington, Delaware, 2 years the Red Sox organization and as an affiliate of the Red Sox in the Carolina League, Annabelle Sanchez was there. And I talked with Annabelle, like, hey, you're coming back from Tommy John surgery. And Annabelle Sanchez went on to have a very good big league career. He was part of the deal with the Marlins and Hanley Ramirez going to Miami for in the deal, right? For Beckett and Lowell. And Sanchez had a very good career, but he stopped me immediately and didn't want it known. Wanted it known that he wasn't a Tommy John guy at that point in time. They were able to move the nerve back into sort of the lane. And I don't know that the similar present-day procedure is like that. But Max Fried, again, picks up his player option. Or, I'm sorry, Giolito. Does Giolito become part of the recruiting process for the Red Sox to get Max Fried in the fold? Giolito, first-round pick, 16th overall, 2012. Fried taken 7th overall by the Padres. So he has bragging rights for the 2012 draft as well. Also official Thursday, Tyler O'Neill, Danny Jansen, Kenley Jansen, Chris Martin, Nick Pivetta, Luis Garcia, Lucas Sims, all free agents officially. Now, the Red Sox have a window here until Monday to negotiate with their free agents. After Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern, they're allowed to negotiate and sign wherever they want. Baseball has the best free agency system with the calendar. NFL, I still don't understand it to this day. NBA has gotten confused, over the years. O'Neill, Pivetta, open, could offer him the qualifying offer. If I'm O'Neill, I almost take it. It's a huge wage. It's one more year. You almost take it. In terms of the budget for this offseason, I don't know that they have allocated a $13 million increase for Tyler O'Neill on the ledger, but that's going to be an interesting one. Again, want to tip our cap to you. Great filling in. Enjoyed it. Filling in for Gabby this last 2 weeks. Want to thank our guests from this week, Jahmai Webster from NESN, Chad Epperson, AA Portland manager in the Red Sox system, Brooks Brannon, minor league prospect in the Red Sox system, and Jim Callis today from MLB.com and MLB Pipeline as well. All interviews from last week and this week available wherever you get your podcasts, also up on the Locked On Red Sox YouTube channel as well. Gabby, this might be the best news that you get today. Gabby is back next week with Locked On Red Sox. But again, I did enjoy it, and I appreciate you joining us as well over the last couple of weeks. Mike Debate has you covered. Locked On Patriots. John Corrales has you covered. Locked On Celtics. I've got you covered. Locked On Celtics postcast throughout the NBA season, as well as we get looking forward to spring training 2025. It is around the corner. That's a wrap for the latest Locked On Red Sox. Locked On Sports, your team, your Red Sox, every day.